Discover the Our MedTech Lives podcast, where industry experts share their career stories, key achievements, and insights into overcoming challenges in the MedTech field. Hosted by Zilka Rima and Kash Ikram.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Our MedTech Lives. Today, we're talking with Dr. Stuart Hart, CEO of Urology Health. Stuart is a physician who chose to step beyond the hospital to shape healthcare in a much more broader scale. After starting his career in medicine, he transitioned into MedTech, where he took on leadership role and helped drive innovation from the inside of companies. Over time, his perspective expanded even further as he moved into investing, backing and guiding emergency healthcare companies, and today he's come full circle, combining all these experiences as the CEO of a startup and building up the next solutions in healthcare. So without further ado, welcome, Stuart.
Great. Thank you, Silka and Kash, for inviting me to the podcast. It's a really pleasure to be here with both of you.
This was already a long intro, but still, we want to get to know you a little better. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So my background, like Kash had spoken about, I'm a clinician. I'm a physician, a surgeon by background and training. I specialized in a field called urogynecology and reconstructive pelvic surgery. So that's really where I started my career. I started in private practice and then spent about 10 years full-time in academia at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida. I spent about 22 years total in practice, and then eventually 18 at the University of South Florida in total. But just like Kash had spoken about in 2016, I did kind of work my way into industry. I wound up at Medtronic.
Yes.
That's where I got to work with Kash.
Good company to start.
Yeah, it was a great company. It really was a fantastic experience, great company to start in the MedTech space. And then moved over to Becton Dickinson, where I helped build and run a medical affairs organization in their urology and critical care organization. And then went on to become the chief medical officer for Integra Life Sciences. And then transitioned my career more into the venture side, early startup side of things, where I still do some work, and then launched a startup in the digital health space.
Fantastic.
Was there a special moment that made you step into MedTech industry, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it was really an evolution. Yeah, I've always been interested in technology and innovation. Being at the University of South Florida, at the time I came, I was very fortunate, had a dean that really promoted innovation and technology and faculty to really explore those areas. It just so happened that we had very robust College of Engineering. Draper Labs from MIT had opened up kind of a office on our campus. So I started working with these organizations and developing really interesting devices that we eventually got patents on. From there, it turned into designing, building, and helping run an innovation center at the university when we built the Center for Advanced Medical Learning and Simulation. So it was an evolution. I would say a good probably 8 years as an academic faculty, until I would say over 50% of my time was spent doing innovation projects and working with MedTech companies while full-time faculty at the University of South Florida. So that transition, it was pretty straightforward when I made the transition in 2000.
So when you joined a company like Medtronic, so I think the other physicians who might be listening may be interested to know, like, what kind of role do you take? Because you're not going to be on the engineering desk and you're probably not in the sales department. So what kind of roles were open to you in a company like Medtronic?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it didn't occur overnight either. I'd been speaking at Medtronic for about 2 years before I joined.
Okay.
And, they really wanted to find the right role for me. At the time I was doing actually a lot of projects for Covidien, which became Medtronic. So we were doing a lot of projects in our innovation center at our, a lot of simulation and testing of products for them. So after about 2 years, I got a call one day saying, "Look, I think we found a really great position for you. Would you be interested in coming on board?" And it was to become a medical director to help lead their gynecology business, which was fairly new. And then from there, after I joined, it was really part of a diligence of a gynecology business that was acquired by Medtronic. Once I joined, then wound up leading a medical directors group in multiple disease states throughout the abdomen and thorax. And so it was a good transition. And for docs out there that may be interested in the transition, again, it doesn't occur overnight. You have to build up towards that transition.
And what does a
But
medical director do at a med device company?
Yeah, so as a medical director, I started my career and really spent my entire career in med tech and medical affairs. So medical affairs were really, you think about it, we're really the scientific medical organization within a med tech organization. So our goal is to ensure patient safety and quality and outcomes on our products. So spent the beginning of my career at Medtronic working in a few disease state areas, working across patient safety and work with R&D, worked on medical education, society engagement, clinical studies, all kind of the areas that you would think of as medical affairs. And then that expanded into a medical directors group where I actually had medical directors and deployed within those different business units.
Amazing.
this director role obviously is a senior role. So your first role in MedTech was a senior role. How did you approach leadership from the outset? I think you were in a leadership position as a doctor before, right? But how was that when entering into MedTech?
Again, I've served in multiple leadership positions, and I think it's really helpful when you're practicing medicine. Especially, I was fortunate enough to be in a really great academic university, serve in multiple leadership roles and gain that experience. I'd also gotten a few business degrees. I got an MBA and actually a master's in entrepreneurship as well, and went through actually a leadership program at the university for future health system leaders. So I'd been through multiple leadership programs, which were really invaluable in my transition into MedTech. So I used a lot of those experiences in MedTech, and really it's about staying focused on what's important, and us physicians being, or clinicians in general, any healthcare leaders being brought into a MedTech organization, stay true to our focus, which is all about the patient. We spend our careers taking care of patients and and doing the best we can to optimize their outcomes and help them improve their quality of life. And really staying focused on that is very important when you step into a different role, especially in medtech.
Yeah,
But just out
unfortunately,
of curiosity to this point, sorry, Cash, just
yeah,
to this
go ahead.
point, have you ever struggled with political stuff in companies?
I'm
Or
going to ask a
because
similar thing.
this sounds
I'm
so
going to ask something
smooth
similar.
in the medical field, but we know in big
Yeah.
companies there's a hierarchy, there are political
Of course,
things.
of course.
Yeah,
Any big organization, it doesn't matter, whether you're in academia, whether you're in big med tech, you're always going to run into political challenges that you have to overcome. Especially when you get individuals that are there for a long period of time, and they've developed their own parts of the business. So it's really important to try to work across the organization. But again, you got to stay true to who you are within the organization. Moving into medtech, it wasn't about coming in and disrupting. It was about, kind of assisting to make sure that the devices were safe. We could do the best. We could offer the best care to the patients that are on the other end of receiving our products. So we want to plug into that and really maximize that. The difference, I would say, with med tech versus an academic being in an academic career is in med tech, you're often in a matrixed organization where you typically have two bosses, and they could be, have very different focuses within the organization. So I would say that's always the biggest challenge, is trying to kind of balance between the two individuals you're reporting to. Typically in academia, you're reporting to one individual and you're pretty much aligned in your mission across patient care, maybe research as well, and innovation and other areas. But you could wind up with multiple focuses in medtech, and it can be a challenge for many clinicians entering medtech. But you really kind of had to stay focused on what is important.
Yeah, I worked with many medical directors at several companies, and I think one of the interesting parts of your job is we're all trying to help in healthcare, but we're coming at it from different angles, right? What do you do when, this engineer puts his life's work on your table and you have to tell him that the baby's really ugly? I've known some who
Yeah.
are very direct in their approach and others are maybe not. How do you tackle that challenge?
It's tough, and it's not just on the R&D side. It's also because we're really grappling with very challenging patient safety issues as well, quality
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
And again, the way I look at it is, at the end of the day, that device is going to be used on a patient, and you want to make sure that that device is safe to use. It's going to give that patient the best chance of a full recovery, of improved quality of life in the long. So it's not personal that, if there's something challenging, maybe a device isn't built exactly in the way it should be to help optimize care of patients. So you just have to have honest conversations. You have to be genuine, authentic. We're really coming at it as we're here to help our patients, not
Yeah.
necessarily to disrupt and tell you that the device you developed is no good, because it could be good. It just may require some tweaking. And then a lot of times our devices fall in our hands to do the testing as well.
Yes.
So, and that's challenging, because sometimes when you do a clinical study, the outcomes aren't exactly as you expected. So again, you
Yes.
have to have those difficult conversations, but it's really important as healthcare leaders within a medtech organization to, again, stand with our focus of, at the end of the day, it's about taking care of patients. We want the best for our patients, and we have to keep that lens and focus in check as we work across the business unit.
Yeah, and then the smart ones realize that you're there. That input is so important from the clinician, right? The people who are going to use it at the end of the day, who have that experience of how this can be best used, and then take your advice, take your feedback, and really go back and redefine what they're doing, whether it be a product side or on the go-to-market side. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, but it is a tricky situation
Yeah.
sometimes. I've spent 3 years working on this. What do you think?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's that input that is so important, because if you didn't have
Yes.
that input, you will launch a device that is not as impactful as it can be. So
You're
it's so
100%
important
right.
to get that.
And if you have that medical director position in your company, then you're so lucky because you can go to that physician and get that advice early on, right at the beginning. And if you're designing something for orthopedics and your medical director isn't in orthopedics, he'll know someone that you can go to, right? Because you have that network from your hospital in the past and you know who the experts are and can reach out. I mean, that's so valuable to a company to have medical
Absolutely.
directors with clinical background.
But I think this is really a luxury in big companies, right? So when we talk about startup companies, at what point do you think they should involve a clinician? Because we know that very often they are in universities and they develop product, and then they talk to the clinician and then they are shocked about the feedback. So what
Yeah.
would be your recommendation for these guys?
I've seen that as well.
We've all
Yeah.
seen that. It's
Yeah.
it's an important point. Very early on, you need to engage clinicians. In fact, that should be part of your diligence as you're developing a new idea for potentially new company, is speak to the users, speak to the ones that are delivering care. It's really, really important to do that from the very beginning. I would recommend that everyone do that before they even launch a startup, because if you can't clearly articulate what the problem is that you're solving, what the unmet clinical need is, and that this is something that is needed or potentially useful, then it's probably not worth pursuing until you have that information.
And I think not only this, where I see a lot of companies struggle is when they change workflows for doctors. So it can be great. There might be a big demand from patients, but still you don't get it into the clinical workflow.
Yeah, it has to fit within the medical system. It has to fit within what we're doing day to day. And there's so much good technology out there, and there's so many good ideas. But I've seen so many ideas come to market that you can tell that it was never designed to be in the workflow, or maybe change the workflow in a positive way. Great idea. I mean, fantastic technology. But unless it helps us as clinicians deliver better care, or maybe care, that is more timely. It has to have some benefit. You often see those technologies not become successful in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. The cost benefit ratio has to be there, right? The cost of changing the way you practice to the benefit you got has got to be big, right? The ratio between the two. And you've worked for several large companies, right?
Yes.
How did you find going from one to the other to the other? Did you see much cultural and operational differences? Were they vastly different, or were they very similar in your mind? What was the feeling you got?
Yeah, I would say they're quite different. Cultures can be quite different. It also depends. I kind of look at companies
Yeah.
also as I compare it to to their age and their maturity.
Yes.
Clearly, I mean, we both worked at Medtronic. I mean, that was a very mature organization, been around for a long time, really understood multiple landscapes. Whereas others are at different levels on that kind of maturity scale,
Okay.
and then the culture comes from the top. It comes from not only the leaders in the organization, but also up at the level of the board. And depending on the messaging from those leaders, it can really change the culture of the organization.
Yeah. And sometimes where the company was founded, if it was founded in Europe, it was founded in Asia, that culture can be also moving through the organization. But it's interesting to note that, one company is not the same as any other, right? They're all very different and you can have
All very different, and different personality, different different focus, different
yes.
ways of engagement with kind of the medical community. So they're all quite different.
Yeah, Medtronic was very matrixed, right? Is in it as a structure, right? You could have several bosses
Yeah,
sometimes, whereas
absolutely,
others are more hierarchical and more pyramid type structure, the traditional company structure. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's fascinating.
It really is. It is.
So when you had all your positions in these big companies, you then became active as an investor. So what has changed in your mindset when you move from building and running companies to evaluating them?
This
Yeah.
is good. You must have been able to tell a lot of people their baby was ugly.
Or you provide feedback for them.
Yes.
I was very fortunate in the three roles I held in MedTech. A lot of what we did was diligence. We did a lot of M&A in all three roles. So I spent a lot of time doing diligence. In fact, what brought me into Medtronic was I got brought in as a consultant to help with a diligence project. So I had spent a lot of time evaluating companies, doing diligence for big med tech companies for acquisition. The difference obviously is on the investor side, it's you're doing the same diligence, but it's for an investment, not necessarily for an acquisition. So you're looking at it through a slightly different lens, but having that lens of working for very large med tech and understanding what they are looking for in terms of an acquisition was really helpful on the front end, because
Yes.
I could look at these companies and understand, do they have a good business model? But not only is it a good business model, but and also is it serve an unmet clinical need, having practiced in multiple fields in medicine within medtech. I've worked in many, many fields outside of my own core specialty. But then, importantly, you have to understand, what is medtech looking for in terms of an acquisition. From the investor standpoint, they're looking at, what is the exit? Is that going to be, going IPO? Is that going to be, an acquisition? And so I really had an understanding from three different, med tech leaders in the space on what they are looking for in terms of acquisition. So I can not only do the evaluation, but I could guide them as well and tell them, look, these are the metrics that MedTech is going to look for you to exit and for you, for the investors at the end of the day to make money so they can invest it in the next generation of MedTech products. So it was very helpful for me, and it felt very natural and exciting. I got to spend a lot of time not only doing the evaluations, but then giving feedback to these companies, and
Yeah,
hopefully
bet,
resulted in.
bet you got to see some pretty amazing technology.
Yeah.
And then eventually you thought, well, I can do that, right? I'm going to start a startup.
Yeah, and again, it came back from my experience and understanding the frustrations, having practiced over 20 years
Yes,
in seeing patients and in patient care,
yes.
is understanding the flow of how patients come into our office, the frustrations they felt, the many years they've suffered with these problems, and the inefficiency in the healthcare system. And so after spending years in medtech and then understanding the investment side, I took all those lessons that I've learned and put it into really helping patients within my field that I'm very passionate about. And with the goal, we want to improve access to care, we want to improve engagement, we want to improve outcomes, but using technology to do it, because we have a big problem in healthcare. Healthcare is very inefficient. I mean, the system is, for the most part, broken. We need to utilize technology. We need to come up with new processes to help our patients. There's just not enough clinicians to be able to manage the problems that our patients suffer. And so we really need to use this new technology. And that's what made this whole venture very exciting.
Can you
Wow.
tell us a little bit about your technology? That
Sure, sure.
we understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, love to hear more.
Yeah, absolutely. The company's called Urology Health, so you can find us at urologyhealth.com. And really, the technology is about those suffering from what we call lower urinary tract symptoms. And if you look in the United States, there's at least 100 million men and women who are suffering from these lower urinary tract symptoms, which are typically bladder related problems, pelvic floor related problems, such as rushing to the bathroom, leaking when you go to the bathroom, pain related issues. And these patients can wait months, if not even a year, to see a provider. And sometimes they get bounced around to multiple providers. Sometimes they can't even get in to a provider a second time. They wind up in the ERs, and the cost to the healthcare system is pretty large due to these symptoms. And we don't have enough providers to manage their care, and the inefficiencies within the system really hurt their care because they need more constant care, they need more engagement, they need more of that synchronous care. So our goal is to utilize AI and technology and build it on a digital platform that patients can get help much sooner than waiting months. But we're also
Mhm.
building it in a way that we complement the medical system. We're not here to compete with the medical system. We want to complement the medical system and take care of those patients that are currently not getting care. And then over time, if they were to need surgery or more advanced evaluations or diagnostics, get them into the right help that is needed to take care of them and improve their outcomes.
And why are they not getting that care? Is that because their diagnosis is seen as less serious and there's more serious things that need to be dealt with immediately? Or is it just purely the numbers?
Well, a lot of it's the numbers. A lot of it is, these things aren't spoken about often.
Okay.
Oftentimes, you
Yeah.
go to a primary care doctor, they may not ask you about bladder-related issues, or even if they do, they may not have the training to manage it. And then
Right.
they may tell you to go find a specialist, and it's so many months to see a specialist, and the specialists are backlogged that it's very hard, and they get frustrated and they give up. It typically, on average, takes many years from a patient from their first symptoms to the time they get diagnosed with these symptoms. So we want to offer a platform that at any time they can get care. They can go online, they can schedule an appointment, meet with an expert, go through our AI tools, which can kind of help better understand what the symptoms are and provide that information to the clinician in a much more robust way than typically just filling out a couple forms when you go to a clinician and you may have 10 minutes with them, and in 10 minutes you have to talk about the last 5 years of your symptoms. So we're engaging that technology to make it a much more efficient process, much more engaging, complete process, so that clinician can better diagnose you and get you the right treatment.
And
Wow.
how do patients get in touch with you? How can they benefit from your technology?
Yeah, we're about to launch. We'll probably be launching the next 4 to 6 weeks. We're starting in the state of
But is
Florida.
it directly? Do they find you? Are you advertising, or do they learn from their general practitioner or urologist? How does it happen?
Yeah, they can learn from their urologists or urogynecologists. They can learn from the primary care doctor. They can find us online. We'll
Mhm.
start in the state of Florida, and then we'll expand across the United States. So hopefully within about 2 years, we'll have coverage across the United States, and we'll be able to manage patients in any state to help them get the care that they need.
And will we see you in Europe as well?
I don't know. I mean, right now we're so focused on the US building it out in the United States, although, it's quite interesting as I've spoken to experts and part of my diligence. I spent a long time doing my own diligence on the idea before I launched, and I did speak with experts really all over the world, and it was quite interesting that I'd spoken to experts in other countries that recommended we come to those other countries as well because they have similar issues with access to care for these conditions.
So why would the app be geographically locked? Is it because it interacts with local individuals, healthcare providers, that's part of the solution that you're providing? So it's not something that I can just use the app and I don't need anything else. Is that why it has a geographical component to it?
I mean, part of it, but a lot of
Yeah.
it's the regulatory environment. So each state has
Okay.
different regulatory requirements. So we have to go state by state, and we have to follow kind of a regulatory pathway to be licensed in each of the states and provide care. We'll also be accepting many insurance providers as well, insurance company. So we have to make sure that we follow each of those rules as well. So it takes time to build out the process, build out the app, so we can properly manage patients in each of the states.
Right.
And how is this classified in terms of regulatory?
Well, the regulatory is more practice of medicine on the state side, not so much on the FDA side. We're providing
Okay.
care to patients. So we have to follow each of the state's kind of regulatory frameworks for delivery of healthcare.
I'm also wondering, would you need to get a CE mark for a product like this, or what would be the regulatory pathway outside of for because it's digital based, right, as opposed to a physical product that's much
Yeah.
easier to get your head around.
Digital based, but we're not selling it to healthcare systems or providers. It's our own platform.
Okay.
So we will be delivering the care on our own platform. But what we did was we utilized digital health tools to make it easier for the clinician to get the information they need to better help the patients. And so the tools are on our end, so we can better collect upfront data, better track the patient and their progress over time in ways that in kind of traditional brick and mortar medicine, it's very challenging to do. We can do things through the kind of digital world that I've always dreamed of as a practicing clinician, but it just wasn't accessible to us in the clinics that I've practiced in. But now with this incredible new technology, we can
Yes.
gather so much more information on the patient, and hopefully that over time will translate into much better care.
There are also a challenge with data safety and the
Oh, of
question
course.
who's owning the data.
Of course. I mean, data security is an absolute top priority in the US, HIPAA, and Europe has other regulations. So we have to comply with all the data regulations as well, and all has to be secured, and that's kind of front and center in everything that we do.
And how did you build the company in terms of people, right? So you now have to find the people who are, in regulatory, and you need software engineers, you need other clinicians, probably some commercial minded people. So how has it gone from working in a company to setting up on your own and then building a team around you? And do you have full-time employees? Are people working on a, per need basis? How does this work in your type of environment?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have spent many years in industry in MedTech, but then also worked in the startup world. So again, very fortunate to build a vast network of experts in the field. And as I was doing my own diligence as to is this a good idea, I reached out to many experts in my field. I reached out to
Okay.
experts outside my field. I reached out to
Yeah.
experts on the operations side, on the tech side, and really got a lot of feedback. And then through my network, I was able to identify those individuals that I felt would really fit well within the organization. And so I was able to kind of grow this organically, but it was really through an incredible network of people. We built an amazing. I mean, if you look at our advisory board, they're just kind of top providers in the country, and top thought leaders really around the world. So very fortunate to have been able to bring in a kind of top notch people to help us build. Because you're right, at the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's all about the skill set, the expertise, and it just has to mesh. It has to come together in the right way to be successful.
And when you compare your jobs in management in established organizations and now being the CEO in your startup company, what are the difference in challenges you are facing?
Yeah, I mean, as the founder and CEO, I'm responsible for everything. So everything falls, on me, which is fine. I love rolling up my sleeves. I love kind of getting my hands dirty and working on everything. And it's just such an exciting project. I love the technology side of it. I love the innovation side. I spent years running an innovation center at the University of South Florida. So it brings kind of all my passions together, which is helping patients, better outcomes for patients. It brings technology, brings innovation, brings AI, digital health tools that were not used previously, but they can be used in really unique ways that help people. So bringing it all together to me has been just so exciting.
And I have a couple more questions on this entrepreneurial side of yourself, right? Being an entrepreneur, starting a company, it's not easy, right? You must have hit some challenges. You must have had some bad days where you're like, how did you keep yourself motivated and just keep going? That would be the first one. And then, of course, there's the financial challenge, right? Now, I know you work for venture capitalists, but maybe they're not the easiest people to get money from. So how did you fund the company? So how did you keep yourself motivated on those hard days, and how did you fund the organization?
Yeah, I would say as a startup founder, every day is a tough day.
Yeah.
There's always challenges to solve every day. Without
Yes.
without fail, there's a challenge to solve. But that's what's exciting, is there's a problem to solve. Everything can be solved. You just have to figure out the path forward. You have to make the best decisions possible for the organization. But my North Star, again, is what drove me, is my passion. I'm a clinician at heart, and it's taking
Yes.
care of people, taking care of patients. And when I was full-time in practice, and you see a patient and you may perform a surgical operation on them, you may even just give them a medicine, maybe teach them something, and they come back and they thank you, and you've made a difference in their lives. That's what drives me. That's what drives many of the clinicians and many of my colleagues, is seeing the outcome and how we not only help that patient, but we help their family. And we have such a big impact on society. And so that's always been front and center for me. So even if there's a bad day, I think about, we're here to help people, here to help our patients. And that's what drives me. Because I know, having practiced for over 20 years, I know what helps patients. I know what I'm doing is going to help those patients. So I have to stay focused. I have to get this done because it's going to have a big impact on
100%.
our healthcare system.
And the funding part, how did you
Yeah.
get the seed funding and the funding to keep going?
Yeah. I mean, the funding, is starting with friends and family. That's really how we started. Be doing probably a full raise at some point in the near future, once we get up and running, especially when we launch in the state of Florida. So, but it's being scrappy.
Yes.
It's being very careful in every penny you spend. Everything you spend money on has to have direct impact on the business. And so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And so you just have to make smart decisions. Obviously you learn a lot during any startup, and you may go in one direction. You have to be open to kind of moving in another. You have to be very careful with the dollars that you have.
I want to stress the point of impact again. You just touched it and said we are always taking care of patients. We had the families, but during your journey, starting from as a physician and then being in these big companies, then a founding CEO, but still acting as a physician, has your definition of impact changed, or is it then the same?
It hasn't changed. And I think it's because my experience, having practiced for over 20 years, being
Hmm.
in the exam room with a patient and their family when they come in and they're distraught with the condition, and then taking them and doing surgical procedures on them, and following them through their journey in improvement, and hopefully improving their quality of life long term. So that's always in the back of my mind, because I've lived it, I breathed it. I spent most of my career in the examining room, in the operating room, taking care of these patients. So in everything I do, that's front and center, is the patient. Because at the end of the day, everything we do touches that patient and touches their family. And so we have to keep that in perspective in any development of any product, whether it's a MedTech, digital health, or health tech, any of the fields that touch medicine, that has to be front and center.
But still, we have a lot of founders who do not have a medical background in medtech, right? So, what would be your advice to them then?
You find someone experienced in that field who can serve as your medical expert, your chief medical officer, your medical director, but and bring experts on the advisory board. It's really important to have that expertise to guide you throughout that process. So again, it's all about staying focused on what's important, and they'll bring experiences that you may never have because you haven't been in those healthcare environments. But it's really important to kind of always be reminded of why you're doing it, and why this is important. So, because there's so many decisions that need to be made on a daily basis, and you need to make decisions that kind of take you to your North Star, and so you don't deviate away from
Also, on the other side, the doctor, a medical doctor, might not know everything about the other departments, right? Like sales,
it. Of course.
marketing, regulatory, whatever. So, and we see a lot of doctors founding a company. So, on the reverse side, what would be your advice to them? Because
You know,
doctors tend to do everything themselves. This is what we see a
we're used
lot.
to it. Again, we're used to rolling up our sleeves, and I certainly am guilty of that. In academic medicine, you're responsible for everything. So you roll up your sleeves, whether it's a research project you're working on, whether it's your OR schedule, everything. You're very involved in it. It's to me, it's about the team. You cannot be successful without an excellent team, having the right culture in that team, and having the focus, having the North Star. And so you need to find the right people. It is so critical to find the right people with the right skill set, and just bringing somebody in because they may have touched on marketing in the past is just not going to help. You got to find really skilled people. And it's a great lesson that I learn almost on a daily basis. Is it's all about the people, it's all about the team, it's about the experience, it's about how you work together. And so any clinician who's launching a startup, I would say start with, first your diligence, start with experts, really understand what you're getting into. And then what is the message you're trying, what are you trying to solve? What is the problem you're trying to solve, and how do you message that? And then find really good people to
And
go.
how do you find them? Is it through your network, or can people apply for jobs in your company?
I mean, for me, it's all about the network. So I was
Okay.
very fortunate to again, having worked in medtech and then on the venture side, and really built a great network. You're spending years going to meetings and meeting people and building a network. LinkedIn is a great place to build a network.
Hmm.
So I relied on my network. But you may not have the network, but you may know one person who can get you connected with another person. You can kind of build that. Venture capitalists are excellent at bridging between what expertise you have and what you need. And so if you're going after funding with VCs, even angels, a lot of times they have enormous networks and they can get you connected. They can identify, what you're missing, these key individuals in your organization, and let's help you. Let's find you these people, and they'll bring you into their network and get you connected within their network. So be very open to networking. Be very open to using LinkedIn to reach out to people that you may not have ever reached out to, and just start a conversation, because it's amazing how many times it's kind of led to other individuals that I wind up working with, because we're all just kind of a few people away from experts in our field.
100%. And this is why I was so excited to speak with you today, Stuart, because you've had such a unique and incredible career. I'm pretty sure when young Stuart was sitting at his desk at home studying for his medical exams, he wasn't thinking, one day I'll be running my own medical device company.
Not at all.
Right?
Not at all.
To go, into the medical practice, into research, join companies and help improve the way medical devices help people, and develop medical devices from scratch with top-notch engineers, and then helping commercial teams launch them correctly in the market for the right patients, then help fund more startups to eventually starting up your own company. It's a pretty unique and pretty amazing career, and hopefully inspiration for some physicians who are probably wondering, is there other things I can do apart from just practice medicine? And yeah, I think you're the living embodiment of yes. So with that said, what are the 3 things that you know now that you wish you knew then?
Great question. And I think I've brought up many of them. Number one, understand what you're trying to solve, I think is incredibly important. Know what the problem is, the unmet clinical need. And it's not just identifying what it is, but it's really important to have the right messaging down, to be able to tell that story. You have to be a storyteller. You have to be to raise funds, to be able to bring experts into your organization to help you become successful. You have to tell the story very well. So I would say, upfront, really understand what you're doing, talk to experts in the field, talk to as many people as you can, share what you're trying to do, and get feedback, and then tell that story. But I think the second thing is be open to feedback and criticism. Times where I've spoken to a potential investor, an angel, or even just an expert in different fields, and they say, you know what, you're approaching this incorrectly. There's a better way to do this, and don't shut them down. Actually, spend more time with them and listen to them. And
right.
Listening and taking that in. Not all the time they're right, not all the time you're right, but you want that feedback. That feedback is absolutely critical feedback to improve. Yes. So, don't be so grounded in my way is the only way or the best way. Be open and be open to pivot. And I think any good company is open to pivoting, taking in that feedback and slightly shifting direction to get a better outcome. So I would, say that definitely is up there. And probably the third is find really good mentors, or one mentor, several mentors.
Yes.
Those that have done this before, who have lived through this, especially if it's your first time, but even if you've done this multiple times, there are people out there that have such incredible experience, who have actually been in your shoes and gone through this journey, and find those individuals that want to help. And it's amazing how many are out there that they don't want anything out of this. They just want to help. They want to see your technology be successful. And some, they may become advisors. Some, they may be even wind up working with the company in some capacity or collaborate. But find a really good, if one mentor, if not multiple mentors, that can help you, because it can get challenging. Having a good mentor is really
fantastic. Like I said, Stuart, incredible career, incredible journey. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and your advice. Thank you. What can I say? It's been an incredible conversation.
Well, thanks to both of you so much. Really, really appreciate being here.
And hopefully we meet again soon.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Thank you for tuning into our MedTech Lives. You have been listening to Zilka Riemer and Tash Ikram. We're committed to bringing you insights and stories that inspire and inform the medical community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network.